welcome to your 2024 love prediction. So I will say, if you hear any background noise, I do apologize. I have 4 pets in my house now, and every time I sit down, at least one of them decides it's time to start snacking, so it is what it is. But hopefully you can't hear too much background noise. But anyway, so I did pre-pull all of your cards today, and we're gonna start off with 2 cards that represent your energy versus your partner's energy in relation to the connection. Now, this isn't your energy in every aspect of your life, this hedonist card. This is just in terms of your relationship, your love life. So this is the energy you're bringing into your partnership in 2024, and the energy you will have, throughout the year. And the Alchemist card here is representing your partner's energy throughout the year, again, in terms of your romantic connection. Now, this hedonist card, I know hedonist probably has like a negative connotation, but I really love the image on this card. And I love what it says here: inspires creative energy to embrace the good things in life, celebrates the beauty in yourself. I don't care what your gender is or how you identify. This is you being in your feminine energy. So even if you're a man watching this, this is how you are in your love life in 2024, in your partnership. You are very much in like the Empress energy. It's so divinely feminine. I love it. I love it so much. You're feeling really happy with your love life. You're feeling really abundant. You're feeling really grateful. And I think that comes from you appreciating the little moments with your partner. You see how she's like savoring these grapes. Like, it's such a simple pleasure, right? Like a nice fresh grape. It's like a simple pleasure. But if we take time, and that's always like one of the mindfulness exercises that a lot of therapists will suggest people starting with if they're trying to get into practicing mindfulness, they'll say try mindful eating. Because so much of the time, and I do this definitely, I know my husband does this, we're the type of people like, yeah, we'll share a meal together and we like to go out to dinner together. But when we're at home, a lot of the times, especially if we're eating something different, or if we've ordered out food, he goes watches his shows, I go watch my shows. We like to watch shows while we eat, And when you're doing that, people don't recommend that because you don't notice how much you're eating. You're not paying as much attention to the food because you're distracted by the program, whatever. And so that's like a really good way to practice easy mindfulness, is just having a meal and sitting there and focusing on like each and every bite. And so metaphorically, that's how you're showing up in your love life. You are savoring the simple little moments. And listen, I'm not by any means a fan of Kim Kardashian, but I remember after her divorce, she said, or maybe it was in the process of her going through her divorce, I don't know, but she said, it was nice, like all of those big, grand, romantic gestures that Kanye did for her when they were together. However, she's reached like a certain age where she's starting to understand, not that she didn't appreciate it, but just that that's not really what's important to her now. What's more important to her now are the little moments. And, maybe she said that because it sounded good to the media. I don't know. But it's reminding me of that, like, I think so often we put a lot of emphasis on those big romantic gestures, on big occasions like Christmas or Valentine's Day or an anniversary or a birthday. But if we're thinking about what makes a relationship strong, that work is done every single day on a day-to-day basis. So I feel like you're just really appreciating and valuing the little conversations between you two, sharing about your day, holding hands, cuddling before, bedtime, whatever. Just like the little small moments, like sharing a meaningful look with each other, sharing an inside joke, laughing together, just little small moments. I feel like you're just really noticing them, and you're having a lot more gratitude towards your partnership. And I think you're taking notice of all the little things that your partner does for you. And I also feel like you are paying more attention to how you're showing up in your relationship, and, you know, just kind of asking those questions. I remember, like, recently I asked my husband, like, how, like, not just like your love language, because we had already talked about that, but how do you like to be loved? Like, how do you feel most loved? And some of his answers surprised me. Some of them I was expecting. And so I feel like it's even that, just like you having these like open-hearted conversations. How can I show up better in my relationship on a day-to-day basis? And it's like your partner is kind of following your lead. You know, I feel like both of you are really showing up a lot more in the connection. And honestly, I think you're feeling really inspired. I feel like this is a very creative year for you. Even if you're not someone who identifies as an artist, I feel like not only are you having a more romantic energy in your partnership, but I feel like you're carrying that energy over into other aspects of your life too. I really feel like you're finding ways to romanticize your life in a healthy way. And I know that message came up in another reading. I can't remember which one, but maybe you're from that group. But yeah, I definitely feel like if you are someone who likes to express themselves creatively, or maybe that's something you want to get into next year, your partnership, your love life is going to be a source of inspiration to you. You know, your love life is going to kind of boost your creativity, which is really beautiful. And I also feel like you're feeling more physically attractive. You're putting more energy into your physical appearance, your self-care. And when you start to do that, especially, because remember, self-care isn't just physical upkeep. That's a part of it. But it's also the mental, emotional, and spiritual, and the creative as well. So when you're doing all of that work, and it is a lot of work, you know, when you're taking good care of yourself, nurturing yourself, mothering yourself, when you're doing all of that, you glow from the inside out. So I feel like you're looking your absolute best in 2024. This feels like a glow up year for you. And I feel like the positive attention that you get from your partner too, like they're noticing it. They're noticing you shining a bit brighter. They're noticing you being in a better mood. They're noticing that you're smiling more, laughing more. You seem more free and more comfortable in your own skin, like you've come into your own. And I feel like for them, as your partner who loves you, that's really cool for them to see. You know? So yeah, I love your energy. I love your energy for 2024. Now your partner's energy over here with the Alchemist card, it says transformation of base motives and goals into golden wisdom. Alchemist. I feel like if you've kind of struggled maybe in your relationship with communication, maybe you and your partner have different communication styles, or you have different ways of expressing certain emotions. So maybe one of you is more closed off, the other one is more open. Maybe one of you is the type of person to just blurt out how they feel, whereas the other, you kind of have to draw it out a bit. You know, they're more careful with their words. So it's like we're speaking at two different paces kind of thing. And that can be difficult and challenging. Any type of, I feel like, difficulty with conflict resolution or communication, I feel like your partner is really kind of taking the lead in that aspect of your relationship. They're improving a lot. So any difficulty they've had with expressing themselves in a way that you would understand, or just expressing themselves at all, you know, if they're super closed up, I feel like that's improving a lot. I feel like any sort of, and there's always going to be conflict in relationships, right? It's never going to be totally rosy and happy. That's just not authentic. It's not real. You know this, right? You know this. real life relationships can be messy and complicated and nuanced, right? And so I feel like there's just a lot of maturity here. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of self-development. And I feel like they're really learning. I think both of you are paying closer attention in different ways. I feel like your partner is paying closer attention to how they can communicate better with you, how they can express themselves better, how they can find a way to mediate conflict better, and how they can, I think, learn from past arguments, learn from past conflicts, so that you two can be better together. And I think in some ways too, they're trying to figure out a better way to support you. Because sometimes that's hard. You know, people want to be supportive of us, but what feels supportive to them may not feel supportive to you. What may feel loving to them may not feel loving to you. And I think the easiest example of this is when someone is upset and your partner, just for example, thinks that, oh, my partner's upset. Let me figure out what's wrong. Let me identify the problem. Let me give them good advice. Let me tell them what they should do so we can fix this. And for some people, when they're in that space and they're emotional, that doesn't feel helpful. That doesn't feel supportive. Sometimes that can come across as judgmental, dismissive, even condescending, possibly. And it's like, I don't need that right now. Or they're telling you, they're making suggestions as to how to fix it, but you've already thought about it and you already know a reason why that path wouldn't work. And it's like, well, yeah, of course I thought about that, but it's not going to work. And it just doesn't feel helpful. And sometimes when people are in that space, they just need someone to listen, or they just need emotional support, like hold space for me. Let me cry on your shoulder, hold me, give me some comfort, make me a cup of tea. I don't know, but I don't need you to tell me what to do in this moment. That's not what I need. I need support. I need you to hold space for me. I need you to show that you care and just be here for me, be by my side in this moment. I don't need you to fix it, because some things aren't, even necessarily fixable. They're just things that we have to learn to cope with. And so that's just an example, but I feel like your partner, almost like a scientist here, through trial and error and learning from past conflicts, how can I be better? And so I think that's really beautiful that both of you, in your own ways, are showing up better in 2024 in your relationship. So this is a very incredible, wonderful start to your reading here. Okay, let's get into your tarot now. All right, for your tarot group 1, we have the 7 of Pentacles, the 6 of Pentacles, the King of Wands, we have the Mistletoe, we have the 9 of Swords, and we have the 6 of Cups. Okay, I will say with this King of Wands here, maybe quite honestly, I could see honestly this being both of your energies in some capacity, but your partner may have a lot of fire sign energy, Leo, Aries, Sagittarius. But I say I could see this being both of you because I feel like the masculine aspect of this with the king would be the alchemist, your partner showing up in that divine masculine way. And then with the fire sign energy, I could also see that relating to you with that hedonist card and that creative energy. So honestly, this could be both of you just in different ways. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into this. I love the mistletoe card coming out here because this is so romantic. So romantic. And this is the lovers in this deck. So I definitely feel like if you were in any sort of way having any doubts about your relationship, maybe just getting in your head about it, you two are 100% like compatible, good together. I think sometimes if we have had conflict or we've had a rough time in our relationship, we can start to maybe question it at times. But I mean, ultimately, every relationship has its challenges, and every relationship can go through tough times, right? That's every relationship, but it doesn't mean we throw in the towel. And so I feel like 2024 is really almost like rejuvenating your connection. There is a reigniting of that spark. You know, that spark you felt during the honeymoon phase, it's coming back around again. And it's different, you know, because you two know each other really well, or better than you did during your honeymoon phase. But it's coming back around. And I feel like with the Six of Pentacles here, you two are both like really nurturing the connection in different ways, like we discussed before, but there's mutual effort here. You can see the scales on the tree. I don't know if you guys can see it that well, but little scales here on the tree. It's balanced, it's honest, it's faithful, it's true. And with the Seven of Pentacles, the way it's depicted here, with him looking under the bed and finding all of these presents, it's like rediscovering what made you fall in love with each other in the first place. Remembering, feeling nostalgic about those early days, and feeling like, this is why I fell in love with you, this right here. So it's a really beautiful energy. And I think what ultimately makes any connection really, really strong is that daily effort. I mean, really and truly, when you feel like someone has made you a priority, when you feel like your partner values the connection just as much as you do, and there's always going to be things in life that divert our attention, and that's okay. That's okay. You know, sometimes we do need to be more focused on our friendships or more focused on our work life. But at the end of the day, if we think about what is most important to us overall, your relationship has to at least crack top 3, right? Like it has to. I'm not saying it has to be the most important thing. I think your relationship with yourself ultimately has to be the most important thing, but your partnership has to be up there. And so I think both of you are feeling really, really valued by each other. Now, with this Nine of Swords, there is some anxiety. There is some anxiety. And when I was pulling your cards and I was laying them out, I said to myself, let's clarify this Nine of Swords, because from the previous cards, and this is the order that they came out in, I just wasn't seeing it. And so the clarifying card was the Six of Cups, which is a very positive card. But clarified here, you know, with this Nine of Swords, I said, okay, maybe there's some anxiety here around starting a family. Not for all of you, but for some of you, with the Six of Cups, I could see that being a thing. So maybe, especially with the Hedonist card reminding me of the Empress energy, you know, maybe you are pregnant watching this or hoping to become pregnant. Again, that's a more specific message, not going to resonate with everyone, but I could see that causing some anxiety. I just, you know, I'm going through that myself right now. I'm in my second trimester, but I remember even when, you know, we were taking the pregnancy tests, I had a month where we were so certain I was pregnant. And then, you know, it was just negative test, but I wasn't getting my period. And so I was like, oh my God, am I dying? Like, what's going on? Because normally it always came like clockwork. And then when I kept getting those negative tests, it didn't even like click with me how badly I wanted to be pregnant until I kept getting those negative tests. And so it's a difficult process. It is. If, you know, you're trying to get pregnant, or if you are pregnant, it's a journey. It is. And I think even still, even if you're just considering and you're not trying, there may be some fears that come up as to whether you would be a good parent or not, you know, and is it financially feasible? And, you know, all of these concerns that can come up. And even if we're talking about you deciding, do I want to get a pet? Do I want to get a fur baby? That in and of itself is also a really big decision. It's a big responsibility, and honestly, more people should treat it as such. So that could be, what this is talking about as well. I think also, if you're thinking about just the future and you're wanting a higher level of commitment, or you're wondering when is it going to happen, that could also be, what this is. Because it feels like to me this anxiety, this, insomnia, this difficulty sleeping, it's weighing on your mind. It's all very much sort of focused in the future, and yet it's tied to the past. And what I mean by that is, if you're sitting here in 2024, can't sleep, having anxiety, and let's say it is about getting pregnant, starting a family, that is a fear and anxiety about the future. But if it's all wrapped up in, would I make a good parent, and that's related to your childhood and your own past, it's both, right? And so it could cause you to reflect on your own childhood. And fears may come up. Maybe you don't want to repeat, the mistakes of your parents. Or you want to be able to provide for your child in a way that maybe your parents weren't able to financially provide for you or emotionally provide for you. And this could also talk about, and I'm trying to cover all possibilities because there's a lot of you watching. This could also talk about a fear around their family. So there could be some anxiety there as to whether their family likes you, or even with your own family, is there going to be conflict? Are they going to accept your partner? Maybe, you two haven't met each other's families yet, or you have and there's already discord, or, there's just this insecurity, will my partner's mother like me, that kind of thing. I also think, generally speaking, for some of you, there could be a fear also around getting to a higher level of commitment. Or even if you're already married, maybe there's a fear there about whether you'll be able to stay married, because maybe you come from a family where there's a lot of divorce, a lot of separation, or people stay together but they're unhappy. Maybe you never had a positive relationship to look to say, I want to be like mom and dad, or I want to be like my grandparents. I want to have that kind of relationship, that kind of marriage. Maybe you never had a healthy example of a loving relationship to say, I want to emulate that. Okay, I think I covered all possibilities with that. But please know that this fear will pass. You will be able to work through it. And for some of you, it could be, a couple other messages came up. There could be some fears from childhood, especially if you had an attachment issue with a parent that negatively impacts your relationship with your partner. So a fear of abandonment, or if you have difficulty expressing your emotions, maybe that's because you had a parent that taught you that was bad or wrong, you should never cry, you should never emotionally express yourself. And maybe you worry long term that's going to create a problem in your relationship. For a few of you, this could be possibly related to financial issues, wondering whether you'll be able to have your dream home and stability there. But I feel that's only maybe for one of you watching. That's a very, very faint message. Very faint. I feel for the majority of you, it's one of the others. But listen, I think anytime you're in a romantic partnership, or a relationship with anyone. You just have to accept that you can never fully know the future or the outcome, right? Like, we just don't know. We really don't. You know, we can, even with tarot, like, we can talk about the current energy and what is forecasted, right? But ultimately, life happens. And it's really cool and really amazing what we can do here with tarot. But I think you have to get comfortable with that fear. And it's the same thing when you have a child. You have to get comfortable with that fear that you don't know if you're going to have a healthy child, like physically healthy. You don't know, you know, as sad as it can be sometimes we outlive our children. You just don't know. But the loving is always worth it. And I think that fear of loss, that fear of grief can cause you to miss out on the very best aspect of being a human, and that's to love. Like, don't cheat yourself out of love in any context because of a fear of loss. Loss is always going to happen. It's a part of life. But the loving is always worth it. And I feel like that's part of your energy in 2024 and why you're appreciating all those little moments and having this beautiful energy of gratitude. Because you're starting to realize you can't control the amount of time you have with anybody. Not really. Life always happens. But when things are good and you have your loved ones close, cherish it. Because even, I mean, if this is part of, you know, anxiety about having a child or children or having another child, if you already have children, you never know. And children grow up, you know, and my brother is 11 years younger than me, and it's wild to me how fast that time flew by. And you really do grieve every age. Like, I miss so much like who he was when he was little. And I love my brother. I love him. But that time was so special, and it feels like it was so short. It was so short when he was little. And listen, he was a terror. Like, when he was 2, 3, he was a terror. But I still miss it. I still miss him being that little. Like, there's something so special about that. And so I feel like you're just coming to terms with what it means to love and what it means to be loved. I also feel like with me being drawn to the Yuletide Tarot deck for your particular group, because I always feel like, just personally, like the holiday season, the winter season is so romantic to me. It's so cozy, it's so warm, and it's always associated very strongly with family and with tradition. And so I also feel like that's something that's going to be super important to you in 2024. Creating a sense of family, creating a sense of home, creating memories, creating traditions. You know, I really feel like you're very focused on that. And I feel like it's making your relationship stronger. I also feel like there's a lot of physical intimacy between you and your partner in 2024, and I keep things clean on this channel, but there's a lot of physical intimacy and romantic moments. You know, I think you guys are doing a lot more date nights. There's a lot more effort put into that aspect of your connection. And I think, you know, wooing the other person, making the other person feel special, feel loved, you know, treating the other person, getting them a little gift just because, you know, writing them a little love note just because. And I love that concept of just because I love you, not because it's a special occasion or anything like that, just because I love you. And I feel like that's a major theme in your love life, in your partnership next year. You two have such a nice relationship. I love this. All right, we have the open up card, we have family, and this effort card came out with the caution card at the same time. And I'll get into the meaning of those in just a second. But this open up card, I feel like this is kind of referencing what we were talking about earlier in your reading when we said maybe for one of you it's been difficult to emotionally express because maybe, you know, you or your partner were taught that that's just not something that's done, you know, like it's not okay to cry, don't get overly emotional, like it's better to be rational, logical, you know, don't get in your feelings, you know, don't raise your voice, don't lose your temper, none of that, you know. Or you have a partner, or maybe you're like this, where you like to keep things light and fun and joke around, and to talk about deep emotional things is just uncomfortable. And so I feel like this is a year where you finally have that emotional intimacy. You finally have those heart-to-heart conversations. You find out things about each other that you never knew. You're starting to learn more about the other person's past, you know, or about their childhood, things that came up, about their relationship with their mom or their dad or their siblings, their secrets, their fears. And I think there's just a lot more trust, and you two are having more meaningful time together for these conversations to happen. And I think it's really special. And I think that if you're going to continue to have a strong relationship, it needs to happen. And so if your partner is the one who is more closed off, I think anything you can do to make them feel more comfortable sharing with you, and it's a process of patience, it is, do that. Do what you can. Don't force it, but just do what you can. And sometimes that means taking the lead yourself and opening up and sharing. And you know, it may be the reverse situation. Maybe you're the one who's closed off. But I think understanding that emotional intimacy is really and truly just as important as any other aspect, you know, of the connection. And you should feel safe. If you can't feel safe to open up to your romantic partner, who do you feel safe with, right? I don't know, maybe you feel safe opening up to your dog. I don't know, or a therapist, that would make sense. And maybe that's something that needs to happen for a few of you. Like maybe in order to get comfortable with emotional intimacy, maybe you do need some therapy, and that's okay if that's the case. You know, some of you may have had some really bad past experiences that have made you terrified to open up. So, I mean, if that's the case, then, you know, therapy might need to be something that happens first, which is okay. Now, with the family card here, I mean, this really could, I mean, we've talked about this a lot, but this really could be signifying a pregnancy for some of you, or that you're trying to get pregnant, or that you're having another child, you're giving birth in 2024. But also, like we said, creating a sense of family. We talked about that. The home being really important to you. You know, creating traditions with each other. Creating memories together. So this partnership no longer just feeling like a romantic partnership, but also like we're family. We're in this together. And so that in and of itself, that perspective shift is a higher level of commitment. And with the repeating fours here, so much stability, so much support. And when I think about family, and this isn't the case in my family, but when I think about family, I think that's where you should get your unconditional love. right there. It's not the case for a lot of people, for myself included, but ideally speaking, that should be one of the main sources, right? And so, within reason, but I feel like that's what you want to get to. You want a sense of like loyalty, trust, support, non-judgment, openness. Now, and I mean, listen, if you are afraid of getting pregnant, like afraid it's not going to happen for you, or that you're not going to be a good parent, I think everyone has those fears. And yeah, it might be a journey, but with this card, this family card coming out, I do feel like, you know, it looks good for you. It looks good for you that could happen. And maybe it doesn't happen, you know, in your ideal time frame, but I do think things happen when they're meant to happen. And so I think if that is something you're really anxious about, know that you only have so much control over it. And the more that you can relax, the better. And if you need to seek medical advice, do that, absolutely. But I think also just pray on it and accept the aspects of it that you do have control over, and where you don't have any control, the best you can do is pray, hope for the best, stay positive. And I mean, that takes work, right? But I think that it does look good for you with this family card coming out. Now with the effort and caution card coming out together here, be careful, and this goes for you and your partner, but be careful about overextending yourself. We always have to be mindful about the effort that we're putting towards others, about who we're saying yes to, and to be careful that we're not putting our own needs and wants too often on the back burner. So if you have a naturally giving heart, sometimes that can come at the expense of your own needs. So just be careful that you're not overextending yourself. And remember where your priorities lie, and know that you yourself always have to be a priority, and that has to be a non-negotiable. Your love and care for yourself always has to be a non-negotiable. Okay, so just be mindful. Don't, overextend yourself too much, because that's going to put stress on your relationship. It's going to cause you stress and a disconnect from yourself. And if you're disconnected from yourself, you're not connected in your romantic partnership either. So just be mindful of that. Try to find as best as you can a sense of balance, as best as you can. All right, with manifestation, luck, and dreams, I asked when I was shuffling these cards, what will your partner love about you the most in 2024? And I just feel like these messages are so incredibly sweet, because there's something about you to where your partner looks at you like you're magic. I mean, I really think they have so much admiration for your life perspective, for your idealism, for your optimism, for your ability to turn a really bad situation into something that is either a learning lesson or something that still has a silver lining. They feel really lucky, really grateful to be with you. And I do think that they still have this really kind of sweet perspective of you where they see the best in you. And they give you the benefit of the doubt, and they give you a lot of grace. And they don't judge you. And I think that there's something like, it's very like sparkly, like, how do I describe this? You almost have like this fairy kind of energy, like this mystical kind of energy, like I must have dreamed you up. maybe there's something like really quirky about you, really different, really unique, where they still feel like, I've never met anyone like you before. And there's just this fun lightness there. And, you know, you do still give them those butterflies. You still have a dreamy quality to you. I think they like how your head is in the clouds sometimes. You know, they like that sometimes you still surprise them. They like that. And they kind of like how you have this childlike wonderment about the world. Like simple little things bring you joy. And you notice in a way that other people don't. And they just find that so sweet and endearing, and it gets them out of a pessimistic energy at times, or reminds them to be grateful. And there's something about you where even if they've had the worst day, they just feel so comforted by you. So it's such a cozy energy. It's like I'm feeling lower than low, but you bring me up in the clouds. You know, there's such a lightness to your energy that just feels like a warm hug to them. It's very sweet. 'Cause I think they just feel so comforted by you. Okay. Now we will end your reading with some Spark Romance Matchsticks. And I'll get 3 matchsticks. Okay, group 1. And I'm just intuitively selecting these. Okay. We have surprise your partner with his or her favorite treats. Yeah, I mean those little moments. We were talking about getting your partner something just because. So this is definitely confirming that. So maybe they'll pick up your favorite snack. I do that a lot, you know, just buying like little things like his favorite chips or his favorite drinks or something. I've got him spoiled now though because he expects it. But yeah, I think this is really sweet. We have act like kids together. Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about like you having this endearing childlike energy that's infectious, you know, like that just reminds your partner to have an appreciation for those simple joys of life, you know, that childlike wonderment. I think you two laugh a lot together, you know, you have a lot of fun together, and you can be really silly together. Oh, again. Oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. Y'all, get a little gift for your partner just because. See what I mean? These Spark Romance matchsticks, look how many matchsticks are in here. It's a lot. It's a lot of matchsticks, and it always amazes me. I don't overthink it, you know, I just intuitively pull them. And it amazes me how on point they are. And just the fact that this phrase came out just because. Oh my God, that's okay. That's one of the coolest moments that has happened in a tarot reading for me in a while. I love that. This is why I love filming these readings. That was such a beautiful moment. Okay, group 1. All right, that concludes your reading. I hope it resonated. I hope it brought you some comfort. Please consider liking, commenting, sharing, or subscribing. Hitting the notification bell lets you know whenever I upload. The easiest way to support the channel is to watch the ads. I know they can probably be a little bit annoying, but you can always mute them and just have them on in the background. So I really appreciate anyone who does that as well. I also want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has watched the ads already, been a regular viewer, donated on Venmo, tipped with Superthanks, or just commented or liked a video. It means the world to me and to Miss Gracie, of course. I'm wishing everyone the best as always. Please take care, and I hope to see you in my next reading. Group 2, welcome to your reading. So we're doing all pre-pulled cards today. We will be getting into your tarot next. These cards here are representing your energy in your love life in 2024, the energy that you're bringing to your romantic life versus your partner's energy. Now your partner actually got 2 cards here. You got the Messiah card and they got the Teacher and the Visionary. Okay, and these two, really work well together, Teacher and Visionary, but I'm going to start with your energy with the Messiah. It says, serving humanity with humility. You are very much coming through in this sort of mystic, spiritual sort of energy here, which makes sense because you're watching a tarot reading, so that's probably something that's important to you. Or if you're familiar with the mystic archetype, it's a divine feminine archetype. I do feel like you're coming through in a more feminine energy, and your partner is coming through in a more masculine energy, especially if you look at the Teacher card here, and we're seeing like all of this mathematical stuff in the background. It's just giving more masculine energy to me, where this Messiah card feels more feminine, feels more spiritual. And I think spirituality in general always seems, just for me personally, more feminine because it's knowing without seeing. It's believing without seeing. It's faith. And I think that's something that's more feminine because with masculinity, we think of evidence. We think of something that is proven, right? At least just for me personally. So, with this Messiah card, I feel like you are very intuitive. Very intuitive. And in 2024, in your love life, I feel like you have so much faith in your connection. And I feel like you just have such a positive outlook on it. And I feel like that's something that you work at really hard. And it's not because you have a partner that you can't trust or anything like that. I think for a lot of you, it comes from past heartbreak, past trauma, maybe a difficult childhood, attachment issues with a caregiver, so on and so forth. But I think you have so much faith in this working out. And you work at that. And you work at practicing trust with your partner. You have faith. And I think there's something so inspiring about your optimism for your future with your partner. I think it's really beautiful how you believe in your partnership and you have faith in your partnership. Now, pardon my reality TV examples, but some of y'all may already know I love Real Housewives, love it. And on Real Housewives of Potomac, I think it was last season, Candace was having a discussion with her cast member, Ashley. And quite honestly, Ashley had tried to coordinate this false narrative that Candace's husband was unfaithful to her, that he was flirting with another woman, that he was being inappropriate, that, you know, he had sent her some private messages on Instagram or something stupid. She made it seem like something that it wasn't. And thankfully, the Bravo cameras caught part of, you know, like what she was claiming on camera, and it was completely false. It was all false. And I mean, if Candace had believed Ashley in that moment and had gone off and fussed out her husband Chris, had, you know, dragged him through the mud, you know, got really angry with him, didn't hear his side of the story, whatever, she could have done real damage to her relationship. But Candace, thankfully, is no fool. She's not. And she saw right through what Ashley was trying to do. And she said to Ashley, she said, I understand that you're telling me right now that you think it's crazy that I'm not running off and fussing out Chris, that I'm not trying to confront this girl that you alleged he has flirted with or that he was coming on to, that I'm not trying to get all the details from her about what happened and her side of the story. And you're looking at me like I should want to talk to this woman. I don't need to hear anything from her. I know my relationship. I know my partner. I know what we have. And I don't need to confront anyone. I don't need to talk to this girl. I know my relationship. And I hope, and I thought this was really nice of her to say, she said, I hope one day you know that kind of trust. Because I know you've never had it. Because Ashley has had a partner who's god-awful and has cheated on her. And, you know, that's known. It's known. And so, and mind you, this is all on the show. So reality TV isn't always, you know, an accurate depiction. But I thought that was so powerful that she said, I hope one day you know that kind of trust. Because she didn't waver. And she was right not to waver because all of it was fabricated. All of it was fabricated. And she has a, you know, not to say they don't have their problems, but I think she has a great relationship. And so I feel like that's the kind of attitude you have, if that makes sense. You just have so much faith and trust in your relationship that anyone who tries to stir trouble, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You trust your partner. So I don't need to ask you 20 questions. I don't need to go confront some girl. I don't need to do anything like that because I know my relationship. And to have like real trust like that, especially when you have dealt with infidelity in the past, you have been lied to in the past, betrayed, hurt, you didn't have a good childhood, you couldn't trust your caregiver, there's a lot of divorce in your family, whatever the case, that's incredible. That says something about your connection, that you have that level of faith, that you have that level of trust. That's beautiful. And it feels like you earned it. It feels like you worked hard to get to that space. And with the Teacher Visionary card here, your partner's energy, I feel like in a lot of ways, they're very much inspired by you. because you have such a different perspective than they do. I think they are really charmed by your spiritual side. And I feel like there's a lot of intellectual compatibility between you two because you're so different. I think it's quite intriguing to see from each other's perspective. And I feel like you broaden their belief in what is possible. So I feel like you're quite inspiring to them, but also you learn a lot from each other. It's very mutual. So I feel like you're teaching each other a lot just about life. Just about life. You have the kind of relationship that, is it always easy? No. No relationship is. And sometimes it is a little bit more challenging for you two because you are opposite in a lot of ways. But I think you have this mutual respect for each other that makes those differences okay and interesting. It keeps things interesting. And I do feel like you're the type of couple that's meant to learn from each other, meant to grow from each other. And I feel like you two have opposing strengths. So areas where you need more growth, they're really strong in, and vice versa. So you help each other. You help each other so much. And I feel like there's going to be moments in 2024 where you really, really need each other. So it feels like you two are a cohesive team. It's a true partnership. And I feel like more so than group one, there's a real friendship here. And it's almost like an odd pairing. Like you two are a bit of an odd couple. I'll say that as well. You two on paper don't really seem like you should work, but you do. And you also come across as a bit of a power couple as well. I mean, I think because you have those opposing strengths together, oh man, like you can achieve a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised, like if you have a joint soul mission. Okay, we have the High Priestess card, we have the Page of Wands, we have the Chariot, the Ten of Cups, the Four of Wands, and the Ten of Swords. You are definitely this High Priestess. This is your energy, especially coming over the Messiah card. You are the High Priestess, 100%. And I feel like your partner is this Chariot energy actually, because I feel like your partner is the type of person to make like a pros cons list. Like they weigh their options carefully, they think things through, they're very more cautious, like I said, and very methodical and strategic about how they move, whereas you are very intuitive. And you're more willing to go with the flow. If something unexpected happens and it's outside of your control, you don't try to exert control over the situation. You just accept it for what it is. You know when to surrender. I think you help your partner know when to surrender, because I feel like they have a lot of, they have some trouble with that. Whereas, with your partner, they kind of help you see this is where you can take action, and they kind of help you organize things a bit because they're very methodical, so they can create order from chaos in a way that I think you may just be more accepting of the chaos. So I feel like, you two, like I said, balance each other out. And I think that's going to be super evident in 2024 because there's going to be certain things that happen where this is your area of expertise. This is your strength. And then there's going to be certain things that happen where your partner excels. And so you really help each other. You help each other so much. And with the Page of Wands, I wouldn't be surprised if you two decide that this is your year where you're going to take a lot of trips together, do weekend getaways when you can, do even like a staycation, try new things together. Even if it's just trying different cuisines when you go out to dinner. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but I feel like this is your year of adventure for you two. starting new projects, trying new things together, getting out of your respective comfort zones, because there really is this energy of you two pushing each other in a gentle way to be better. And I wouldn't be surprised if you're the couple that has like New Year's resolutions that you create together. Like, this is what we want to do as a couple next year. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, with this 10 of Cups next to the 4 of Wands, okay. If you've been wanting to get engaged, I could see that happening in 2024. Maybe some of you are getting married in 2024. Maybe you're talking about moving in together, starting a family. It feels like this is the year for ascension in your level of commitment. So this is the year where things get more serious between you two, and all of you are at different stages. All of you are at different stages in your connection, so just take what resonates. And that could be as simple as deciding to get a dog together, but this is your year where you're getting closer and you're thinking about the future and you're making plans and you're taking action. And that in and of itself is an adventure. It's something new, it's a new chapter. But you're creating a home, you're creating a life together. And again, like, all of you guys are at different stages, but you're moving in that direction. So it does feel like you're with your life partner. I mean, that's what it feels like to me. I don't know, if you're the type of person who wants a life partner, but that's how it feels to me, just looking at your cards, looking at the energy, how you two are supportive of one another. I wouldn't be surprised if y'all are soulmates, if you have a joint soul mission together, a joint life purpose. It feels a bit more of a serious energy, I think, than group 1 did. And with the 10 of Swords here, I feel like that's what we were talking about before, with the Messiah, with your energy, thinking about your past and how you have really fought to develop this sense of faith. And you may have had to have a sense of faith that you were even going to meet this person. Like, you may have been single for a while or just had a string of bad relationships, and now you have this sense of gratitude, and this has kind of affirmed your faith that love exists, that the divine is working in my favor, that I'm right to believe in the universe and the power that it has. So it may be that the relationship within and of itself, and the fact that it manifested into your life, affirmed your faith and deepened your spirituality. I could see that being a thing. It's like, I prayed for you, I hoped for you, I manifested you, It's a really beautiful energy, it is. And I think always just be mindful that, every single one of us has some degree of emotional baggage, and that affects our intimate connections, the people closest to us. And sometimes we replay dynamics that we have known in our past, or we settle into old roles because we were always taught that, we're the giver and that's what we do. We're the compromiser, that's what we do. We're the fixer, that's what we do. We're the scapegoat, that's who we are. I'm the black sheep. We develop and are assigned these roles when we're young, and they kind of just follow us around. And I think if you can start to notice how sometimes that negatively impacts your relationship, because I do think there is still some healing happening, but I think it's meant to happen. I always say, and I think I even said this yesterday when I was doing the singles reading, and it comes up a lot because I feel like it's just so true. We are meant to grow through our partnerships, yes, should you hopefully love yourself and be in a good place with yourself before you get into a romantic partnership? Yeah. But healing and self-love and self-acceptance, that's a lifelong journey, and there's a lot of unlearning to do. And this idea that you have to be in this perfect place with yourself and love yourself unconditionally before you can actually have a healthy relationship with someone else is really tricky. And I think honestly, probably a bit unrealistic. Would that be ideal? Sure. But how many of us are in that space? And I think we are meant to learn from each other. We are meant to grow through our partnerships. There's only so much inner work and healing that you can do on your own. We learn through our relationships. We're social creatures. I mean, I've learned just through my relationship with my cat. I've learned a lot about myself by being responsible and taking care of her. And I mean, it taught me a lot about myself, you know. I was like, wow, like I didn't realize how much I love mothering. I didn't realize how much I love nurturing. And that was like a huge epiphany moment for me. That was massive. And that's just with my cat. So listen, don't let anyone make you feel bad or like damaged or, you know, or broken in some way just because you still have some triggers or some emotional baggage or, you know, some insecurities or some fears. You know, and I think you're strong enough in your faith to work through it. But don't let anyone make you feel bad for those very human aspects of your identity and what you've been through. And if you do have any sort of emotional baggage, God knows it's understandable if you've been through the Ten of Swords. This is such a trying, challenging, heartbreaking energy. It's hard. It's tough. I mean, that's why the imagery is always so intense with the Ten of Swords. Being stabbed with 10 swords, the amount of distress physically you would feel, that is the emotional equivalent of the Ten of Swords. So sit with that for a minute. And I'm preaching to the choir because y'all know what this feels like. Sorry, I just feel really protective over you, group 2, and having gone through that. And that's why I think it's so incredibly beautiful that you are so spiritually aligned, that you have so much faith, that you are so connected to the divine. Like, that is so beautiful for you to have that faith and not be angry and resentful. That is powerful. That in and of itself shows how much inner work you have done. And it does benefit you in your connection. Okay, we have hope, we have codependency, and caution. With this hope card, I feel like this is sort of an overarching theme of your relationship, even, you know, before and beyond 2024. I feel like this is talking about the faith that you have in your relationship. I feel like this is talking about when you two came into union together. It just gave you so much hope for the future. It was such a stark contrast to what you've known before in love. It gave you this belief that you could have the Ten of Cups, you could have the Four of Wands, you could have emotional fulfillment and stability and security. Finally feeling like this is someone who is meant for me, this is someone who will stay, this is someone I can trust. And it feels like a mutual energy. And I feel like both of you are so optimistic about the future, but I feel like you're the one who kind of takes the lead with that, and your energy is a bit infectious, you know, because I feel like your partner, you know, is quite grounded, and I feel like you kind of give them a safe space to let, this is going to sound weird, but to let their closet idealist come out, you know, because I feel like in their heart of hearts, they're just as much of a romantic as you are, but they don't show it. You know, I think they would be embarrassed to show it. But, you know, like they would never admit that they believe in soulmates or you know, they might be hesitant to say that they believe in love at first sight or soul recognition, or, you know, things like that. You know, they may feel a bit silly, but I think you make them braver to kind of lean into that a bit. But yeah, I feel like there's just a lot of hope for the future. I feel like you two are making a lot of exciting changes, and you're making a lot of big decisions about your future together. And there's a lot of hope and a lot of optimism and just excitement. And I feel like almost like this energy of like teenage love, you know, when things feel really magical and like anything is possible, and you're young and dumb and in love, and, you know, you haven't had your heart broken yet. That's the kind of energy, you know, it's really beautiful. It's really pure. And now I will say, with this codependency card, I do feel like you two are very attached to each other. You are, but I feel like from the outside, people may judge your relationship or say you two spend too much time together, or you seem too dependent upon each other, or like, I never see you, you're always with your boyfriend, or, you know, like whatever. And I feel like that's people kind of misreading the dynamic, quite honestly. I feel like you two are a team, and you are very connected, and you do make a lot of decisions together. And, you know, some people may be in your ear and they're like, oh, well, why do you have to consult, you know, them all the time? Why do you always have to ask them? And it's like, I'm not getting permission. Like, that's not the dynamic. We are a team. So my decisions affect them. And so we make decisions together, and they give me that same respect back. So it feels like people judging the connection without really understanding the dynamic between you two. And I also feel like if you've been through this Ten of Swords, like we were talking about, yes, you may have some fear of this happening again. Even though your faith in your relationship is really strong, you still remember. You haven't forgotten this Ten of Swords. You can never forget that Ten of Swords. And so at times you may have moments of weakness where you do try to like cling to your partner, or you need more reassurance from them. And I think just be aware of when that's happening. Question, why is that happening? What triggered you to feel that way? And then you can talk about it. Okay? Because no relationship is perfect. Like I said, we all have emotional baggage to a certain extent. So just be mindful of that. And I think question it, you know, do some self-reflection. Just question it. And not in a judgmental way or a self-criticizing way, but just in like an inquisitive, let me get to know myself better way. Let me understand myself better. And sometimes that's a hard conversation to have with yourself. I recently had something pointed out to me by my husband, and it kind of threw me for a loop, because what he was describing that I was doing from his perspective reminded me so much of what I would complain about what my mom would do. And I was like, oh my God. Because I hated when she would have that behavior. And for him to describe something similar that he was noticing in me without knowing that about my mom or, you know, anything like that, threw me for a loop. And so I had to sit with myself and say, like, what is causing me to do that? You know, and how can I avoid doing that in the future? Because I know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of that. So I definitely don't want to do that to my husband, because I know how crappy it feels. Because my mom did it to me and my family when I was younger. So sometimes we do have to have those difficult conversations, and sometimes our partners can inadvertently point out things to us that we didn't even, you know, realize or recognize within ourselves. And, you know, you may be doing that for your partner as well in some ways. Although I do feel like your partner, is pretty independent. And with this caution card here, I feel like this is speaking more to the fact that you all are making some big life changes in 2024. And I feel like Spirit is just saying here, be careful. Be careful. And this is less to do with your romantic partnership and just more to do with the practicalities of things. So for example, if you got engaged and you're planning a wedding, just be mindful, like don't rush and make a ton of decisions right away. Take your time with planning it. Be smart with your money. Take your time. There's no rush. Especially if you just got engaged, right? Like take your time. I know people tend to ask a lot of questions and that can be stressful. Like, what's the date? Where's the venue? What dress? Blah, blah, blah. Take your own time with it. Don't let anyone else, rush you. Or same thing if you're deciding to move in together. Have patience with that process. It's a lot. Combining two households, especially if you have pets, it's a lot. So just be patient with yourself through that process. I understand that even though it's a positive change, it can put a temporary strain on your relationship because you're navigating something very new and a big change for both of you. Or if you decide, you're going to buy your first house together, that's a whole big undertaking. So even though it's something that's exciting, it can still put, a temporary strain on the connection. And it can be really stressful. So just give yourself grace, give your partner grace, and remember it's just a temporary stressor. And, be grateful and still excited about the positive change. Okay, now we have enthusiasm, prosperity, and relaxation. I feel like we've talked about enthusiasm a lot because we talked about your optimism and your idealism. And I forgot to say, these Witchling cards are representing what your partner is going to love and appreciate about you the most in 2024. So my apologies. So yes, I feel like we've discussed this a lot. So this is just confirmation that your excitement, your optimism, your idealism, your enthusiasm, your romantic side is something your partner is really going to love about you and is honestly going to uplift their mood and their spirit next year. So, and I think also if y'all are making a lot of big or a few major life changes, decisions together, planning for your future, all of that can be stressful. So the fact that you have such a positive outlook, I think is really going to help the situation. And with prosperity here, I just feel like your partner here just has this mindset with you of like, you just turn straw into gold, like any negative circumstance, like you just have a way of spinning everything in a positive way, and it's like your thought process and the way you talk through things gives them such a new perspective. And I think that comes from your spiritual side, your faith. You're able to conceptualize how everything happens for a reason, how everything serves a purpose. And you understand life and you accept life on life's terms. And you take the good with the bad and the bad with the good. And I think that's really inspiring. And I feel like your partner really appreciates with prosperity and relaxation how you balance work and play. How you have a really healthy balance when it comes to your perspective on work versus downtime, on work and responsibility and obligations to others and self-care, and taking time for yourself and enjoying life. And I feel like sometimes they need that because maybe they just work too hard. They focus too much on that area. And so I feel like, you help them see that taking breaks or resting is necessary. you don't always have to be so productive. I feel like you help them with that. And it may be because you had to learn that lesson for yourself. And so you understand that, the way someone could fall into the trap of like hustle culture because you've been there, maybe before yourself, maybe you haven't for some of you, but maybe that's also why you're so helpful. I keep wanting to say future spouse. That's why you're so helpful to your partner. Okay, let's go ahead and get your Spark Romance Matchsticks to end your reading. And I'm just going to intuitively select 3 matchsticks here. Group 2. Okay. We have Go Skinny Dipping. Okay. I feel like, I don't know, like to me that's something you would do on like a vacation. So maybe you really are taking a lot of trips with each other next year. Like I said, a lot of weekend getaways. We have Stay In and Have a Game Night. We talked about staycations too. I love that. And we have Go on a Road Trip. Yeah, I mean, you really might be traveling a lot because you got the Page of Wands, remember? It says go on a road trip, planned or spontaneous. So yeah, definitely I think travel, but also balanced out, being able to create a vacation or a meaningful memory just staying at home too. So I love that. I feel like there's so much balance in your connection in so many different ways. I feel like that's a key theme in your connection. All right, that concludes your reading. I hope it resonated. I hope it brought you some comfort. Please consider liking, commenting, sharing, or subscribing. Hitting the notification bell lets you know whenever I upload. The easiest way to support the channel is to watch the ads. I know they can probably be a little bit annoying, but you can always mute them and just have them on in the background. So I really appreciate anyone who does that as well. I also want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has watched the ads already, been a regular viewer, donated on Venmo, tipped with Superthanks, or just commented or liked a video. It means the world to me and to Miss Gracie, of course. I'm wishing everyone the best as always. Please take care, and I hope to see you in my next reading. Welcome to your reading. So we're starting off with some oracle cards, then we'll get into your tarot and some more oracles. But this card here, this Lover card, is representing your energy in your love life in 2024. So the space that you're going to be in. This card here, the Poet card, represents your partner's energy in your love life next year. So very romantic energy between the two of you. Even all of this red that I'm seeing is quite beautiful. But I want to talk about your energy first with the Lover. It says great passion and devotion, unbridled appreciation of someone or something. So, I mean, you are someone who loves love. I mean, you really are. You're someone who thrives in a romantic partnership. Some people are, good on their own. And I'm not saying that you're not, but I feel like you are someone who thrives when they have a person. And I feel like you are a hopeless romantic. You love love. And I feel like the energy of love loves you right back for it, I feel like you're someone who is just so beautifully open-hearted. You're affectionate. You're devoted. You are so sweet. You are kind of an ideal romantic partner. And I think as beautiful as that is, sometimes that's a bit of a struggle for you, because the way you show up in your intimate relationships, not just, with your romantic partner, but with family and friends, like those closest to you, you give and you give and you give. You give so much. You have such a great capacity to love. It's incredible. But I think it's a difficult energy to match. It's hard to reciprocate that. You will find, I think, over and over again in your life group 3 that you give a bit more than you get. I'm sorry. You give a lot more than what you get back. And I think at a certain point, and maybe it comes in 2024, maybe you're already realizing this, maybe you'll have this light bulb moment in the future. I don't know when it's going to happen, but there's, at least from your cards right now, but I think there's going to be a moment of reckoning for you where you say, okay, other people are not going to change. They're not. I need to manage my expectations. At a certain point, I need to change my behavior because I can't change the behavior of anybody else. I had a conversation with a friend a while ago, and she was confiding in me and telling me, and I'm just telling y'all this story to give context, but she was telling me, essentially venting, that her other friend just wasn't appreciative of what she was doing for her. And I said, well, be more specific, like what's going on? And she said, well, she's sick this week, and, I baked her cookies, and I made her, a get well basket, and I was going to bring it over to her, to cheer her up, to make her feel better. I was going to bring her some soup, blah, 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 blah. And that's a lot of effort, soup, freshly baked cookies, a whole wellness basket. I mean, that's a lot of effort to put in, right? And it's how she is. She can be really mothering, really giving. But her friend told her, I really don't want any visitors right now. When I'm sick, I just need my space. I don't want any visitors. I'll feel like I need to shower and get dressed and look presentable. And she's like, no. I don't care. I know you're sick. You can be in your PJs. And her friend was like, no, I just really, I'm not comfortable. I just, I don't really feel up to eating anyway. I don't, essentially just telling her in different ways, please don't come over here. Please don't come over here. And she wasn't getting that message. She was like, well, I can just leave it at your door. And so she was just upset. And it wasn't just that one incident. I think there were like multiple incidents where she just felt like she was giving more to the friendship than she was getting back. And, her friend was ungrateful. Her friend, was putting her at the bottom of, her list. Her boyfriend and her other friends and her roommates were coming before her, all of this stuff. And I told her, I said, well, I think even though you're giving from a good place, at the same time, you're giving something that isn't being asked of you. Sorry, y'all, I got interrupted. But I was saying, also, you have to be respectful of someone else's boundaries. You may be trying to give more than what the other person is comfortable receiving. Sometimes when someone is giving, other people can pull away because it feels overbearing. It can feel smothering. It can feel like I can't repay all of this debt. Like you start to feel indebted to the person. It can become uncomfortable. And I'm not saying that you do it to this extent that my friend was doing, because when she was telling me the story, I was like, it's really a bit intense. If she's telling you no, you have to accept that on the first time she told you no. You just made all of these assumptions that she would want this wellness basket, she would want the soup, she would want the cookies. You made all of these assumptions and you had all of these expectations for how she was going to respond. And you almost made it about you. She was sick. She didn't feel good. She's saying, when I'm sick, when I don't feel good, I like to be left alone. You have to respect that. And it's okay for her to express that. And it's okay for her to be honest. And just because you would be appreciative of someone doing that for you doesn't mean that everyone else wants that. People have different needs. So, maybe next time adjust your expectations. So if you want to do something nice, send a text first. Say, hey, would you like me to do X? And then they can tell you before you waste your time and energy and money. And then you don't feel like you're being taken for granted or that your efforts aren't appreciated. Because you'll know where the line is. You'll know what the boundary is. And there were definitely things that friend was doing to her that weren't very nice. That were taking her for granted. That were, to me, in some aspects felt like, yeah, she was being used in some ways. But if that's happening and you feel like you're being used over and over and over again, if you want to continue that relationship, you can't change their behavior. You can tell them about their behavior and, what is upsetting about it. But ultimately, whether they change or not is on them. So to protect your own heart, you gotta change your behavior. Adjust your expectations. Don't expect so much from that person. The easiest way to break your own heart is through your own expectations. Expecting too much from someone who always gives too little? Yeah, come on, you know the pattern, you know the score. You know what's gonna happen. Adjust your expectations. And adjust your behavior accordingly. If they're giving you breadcrumbs, you better give them breadcrumbs right back. Don't give them more than what, don't do that. Don't put in more than what they're putting in. And you learn that over time. So I think that's the only thing I would caution you here. This is such a beautiful energy. But if you feel like at times you're disappointed in your partnership, you feel like you're doing so much and they're just not giving it back to you, have that conversation. Have that conversation. Adjust your expectations, change your behavior. And ask yourself, are you happy in that dynamic or not? You have such a beautiful heart, and I think it's so difficult when you are kind of like the ideal romantic partner, because a lot of us out here, group 3, are not at your level. A lot of us are messy, and we don't have the capacity to give the way that you do. We don't. A lot of us don't. And it's beautiful that you have this incredible capacity to love, but not everyone has this level of nurturing within them. Not everyone has this level of emotional intelligence. Now with your partner here, with the Poet, it says expresses soul insights in symbolic language. You do have a partner who's quite romantic. You do. And quite artistic. But I do think that they're a bit more wrapped up in their own head a lot. If I think about a poet, I think of someone who's a bit removed, quite honestly. Someone who's in their head. Someone who has a very vivid imagination. Someone who can sometimes feel far away. I think all artists feel like that. They feel a bit far away. And you may want more from them. You may want them to be more present than they are. And I think maybe sometimes there needs to be a conversation about how you need to be loved. You spend all this time and effort loving them. Have you told them how you want to be loved? I feel like they may give you a lot of words of affirmation, but maybe you want something more concrete than that. I think they're charming, they're good with their words, very charismatic. A poet, of course they're good with their words. But I think sometimes you want this closeness. You see the way her arms are wrapped around this heart? You want such an intense level of intimacy. And I don't feel like they always give you that, because there's a part of them that's just wrapped up in their own thoughts, their own work, their own inner world. Sometimes there's just a disconnect. So I think there has to just be a conversation here, because they have this capacity for romanticism. They do. But I think the way that you want to be loved hasn't really been made clear. I think a conversation needs to be had in 2024 so that this disconnect does not persist. I think that both of you at times in different ways can see each other through rose-colored glasses. And so your energy, not your energy, but I guess the energy between you two doesn't feel very grounded. And so it's like together, the idea of us is such a beautiful fantasy, but the reality of it sometimes is very challenging, because I think both of you just have these very lofty ideas about love, and sometimes that romanticism lacks the practical groundedness that is needed to sustain a connection. You have so much love and attraction and, between you two. But especially for you, group 3, your expectations are so high. And I think there needs to be a more grounded energy here. A more realistic idea of what love looks like over time. that love isn't always some great passion or some deep heart to heart. Sometimes it looks a lot like work, because it is. And just because it feels that way and is that way sometimes, it doesn't mean that y'all aren't compatible. It just means that it's real. It's life. That's the name of the game. You could be with your true love, the love of your life. Okay, y'all. I brought up Real Housewives in another group, and I'm gonna bring it up here. I was talking about Potomac in another one. I want to talk about Real Housewives of Atlanta for a minute, y'all. Last night, I was listening to Bethany Frankel's interview with Nene Leakes, or one of them. I think she's done more than one. And she was talking about how her husband, Greg, was the love of her life. The love of her life. And watching the show, they went through, a separation. I can't remember. I think they actually did get divorced. They did. And he was her second boyfriend, her second real long-term relationship, and her first relationship was someone who was with someone who she says was very abusive. And so when her and Greg got together, she said at first she wasn't even looking at him like that. She said she didn't like his shoes, she didn't like his pants, she wasn't, attracted to him in that manner. He was a lot older than her, so she wasn't taking it that seriously. She had never dated anyone who was, more mature. He was very much a gentleman towards her, and she wasn't used to that. She wasn't used to being treated well. So she thought it was corny when he was opening the door for her, when he was buying her flowers or chocolate, and because she had never received healthy love before, so she thought it was corny that he was putting in this effort, right? And she said, but when they actually got to the date, at first they were like, we don't have a table. Y'all want to sit at the bar for a while until you get a table? And he said, yeah, sure. And she was like, oh man, I got to sit here and talk to this man. Like, she was ready to go. But throughout the entire date, they connected. And she said they just talked and talked and talked. And she left the date feeling like that was a really good date. Like, it surprised her how well they connected, and she wasn't expecting it. And she said the next day, he asked her out to lunch. So she was like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. I just wanted to eat. So they go out to lunch, and he tells her, you're going to be my wife someday. And she was like, yeah, right, whatever. Like, listen to this man. She was still not taking him seriously. And I believe she said within 6 months they were engaged, and then within a year they were married. And they were together for a long time before they got divorced. And then they ended up getting back together again later. And she said he has since, unfortunately, passed away. But she said, he was the love of my life. And he did not come into my life and look like what I expected. He wasn't someone she looked at and immediately fell in love with. It wasn't what we, the typical kind of love story you see in a movie or you read about in a book, or like our typical idea of what falling in love looks like. But he was the love of her life. And watching them on TV, I was like, they always had this amazing chemistry. And I felt like Nene is a very strong personality. I love her, but she's a force. And I always felt like he did so well holding his own with her, supporting her, encouraging her. And he was, a more soft-spoken person. And I just felt like they had such great energy between them. I think she's a Sagittarius and he's a Leo, but they had such great energy and such a beautiful natural rapport together. And I felt like they played off of each other so well. And it was funny to me that she would tell that story, and I'm like, it's funny because to me they seem so compatible. But when she first met him, it just wasn't her idea of the type of guy that she would end up with. And he spoke it into existence, you know? And if he's a Leo, like I think he was, you know, that's the Leo confidence coming through. But yeah. And so my whole point in telling that story is just to let y'all know, if your love story, if your relationship doesn't play out the way that you expect it to in your head, it doesn't mean that this relationship isn't meant to be or that it's wrong for you. It's just, you gotta get out of that habit, group 3, of creating a narrative in your head and building your expectations so high. And when it's not a fairy tale, because y'all romanticize a lot, you do, group 3. When it doesn't play out like you think it would, don't get so disappointed that you think this is all wrong. And I'm not saying you should stay with this person. I'm just saying this tendency to romanticize, this tendency to expect other people to give and behave in a way that you do, or to want to be loved the way that you do, is going to keep breaking your own heart. And I think especially when people don't give us love the way that we do, when people don't express love the way that we express love, we worry that it's not there. But people express love in different ways. That's why there's different love languages. I think at times y'all don't speak the same language. So I just think there needs to be conversations had next year. There needs to be conversations about the relationship dynamic, because you two could be so great together, but it needs to be more grounded. You need to have some tough conversations about expectations, how you want to be loved, boundaries, goals for the future. We need more grounded energy here. Okay, we have the 9 of Blades, which is the 9 of Swords in this deck. We have the 6 of Cups. We have the Creator or the Magician. We have the Hanged One. We have the Star. And we have the 6 of Coins or the 6 of Pentacles. There's some dogs barking outside. They're actually not my dogs. My husky's outside sleeping. He's sunbathing. He's being a good boy. But hopefully y'all don't hear the dogs across the street. But anyway, group 3, I hope y'all aren't upset by this reading, because I do feel like there's a lot of advice being given, even in your tarot. And I feel like a lot of it is stuff we've touched on. I do want to expand upon it. With the 6 of Cups and the 6 of Pentacles being here, this is like the crux of the matter. If there was anything that was going to put a great strain on your romantic partnership, it's the give versus the take. You know, I think at times you feel like you're getting breadcrumbs. At times you feel like they aren't appreciating you. They're not valuing you. You want it to be more fair. You want it to be more balanced. And maybe you like taking care of other people. Maybe you like that. You like feeling needed. But ask yourself, and this is something I had to come to terms with when I was younger, why do I feel the need to be needed? And if you get deep into it, you start to realize that's a form of control. I want someone, I'm giving and giving and giving. What am I getting out of it? I like to feel needed. Okay, why do you like to feel needed? because then they'll stay. If they need me, they'll stay. And that's a form of control. And it comes from a fear of abandonment. And that was a hard truth I had to come to terms with. Why do I feel the need to be needed? And that friend that I was telling y'all about recently, very recently, I had to disengage from the friendship because I started to realize this person only shows up in my life, is only interested or invested in my life when I am struggling. They are the best friend you could ask for when I'm down. But when things are good for me, they ghost. Funny y'all have the ghost tarot. They ghost. I don't hear from them. And there's an undercurrent of jealousy there. And just not being happy, not feeling supportive. And it took me a long time to figure out that pattern of like why they were always hot and cold. And then it just clicked. That's what it is. That's where, and it was never an overt thing, the jealousy aspect. It was always like very passive aggressive. But it finally clicked. Because, usually it's the opposite. Usually you think when you're down and out, that's when fake friends, go away. They only want to be with you for the good times. But this one was the opposite, and so I think it took me longer to catch on to it. But I was like, oh, they like me being dependent upon them. They like to have the upper hand. They like to be the one to have it together. So when I'm a mess, they love that. And they're there to support when I'm a mess. But when I start to get better and get back on my feet, they're nowhere to be found. When I tell them good news, I get left on red, And it's always that case, it's a pattern. And so for you, I feel like there needs to be some self-reflection around why you give so much, because your answer may be different than my answer. That was something I had to deal with when I was younger. Like, why do I give like this? Your reasoning why may be totally different. But I do think it's both here. I think you need to pull back how much you give. And I think your partner either needs to give more or they need to give in a different way. Because maybe what they're giving now isn't what you need. And that's why I said you two need to have some tough conversations with each other. Sorry, y'all, I got interrupted for a second, but I will say, as hard as those conversations are going to be to have, once you start to have them, you have kind of like a blueprint on how to make things better, on how to strengthen your relationship. Because with the Hanged One here, you're going to get a totally different perspective. When you start to have these talks, these honest, open conversations about your relationship, I think you're going to be really surprised by the response that you get from your partner. And it's going to be like an aha moment, like, wow, they were seeing things so differently than I was. And what I assumed their intentions were, what their thoughts were, what their goals were, what their motivations were, their thought process was totally different than what it actually was. And so it's going to be a real eye-opening experience. And once you start to have those conversations, it takes away all of the anxiety and the fear and the questioning. And you just get it all out on the table. And so then, with the Star card and the Magician, you can start to rebuild. Whichever way you end up, deciding to go here, whether you stay in the connection, whether you leave the connection, but you can rebuild. And so either you leave this connection to get what you do want, or you stay in this connection and you make it better. Either way. And the universe isn't saying which way you should go. It's totally up to you here. Either way, you can be happy. It just has to be either a change in the current dynamic, or you get into a new dynamic with someone else. And you take what you learned from this experience and you do better. So either way, you can be happy. It's less about the choice and more about your perspective. And there's actually a book. I haven't read it. I've read a lot of books by this author, but I've heard other people talk about it. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. It's by Jenkins Reid, but I'll put it in the description box because it really talks a lot about how it's less about our choices or that we'll be punished by the universe if we make the wrong decision, and more about our perspective. And that we can have joy and emotional fulfillment regardless of which choice we make. It's more about our perspective. So I'll put that in the description box for you all. If I forget, please remind me in the comments and I'll update it. But I'm going to try to remember. Okay, we have support, trust, influence, and heartbreak. I really feel like this is what you want more of. You want more support, you want more trust. And I think that's part of that conversation that needs to happen. But I also feel like you have to have enough trust in your relationship and that you're in this together. You see how they're holding hands in both of these cards, that you can be safe to have these conversations and that you're not going to break up just because you have some difficult conversations with each other, or you have, a difficult cycle in your relationship or a trying time in your relationship. And I think there are going to be some heartbreaking moments. There are going to be some tough moments, some tough conversations. But again, it's less about the choice. There's no right or wrong here. It's just more about your perspective on it and whether you're willing to adjust and have those conversations and whether you're not. Because I do feel like if you have these difficult conversations, if you're honest and open, if you do some self-reflection, see where you need to change, I feel like your partner will follow suit. Because I do feel like they love you. I don't feel like there's a lack of love here. I feel like there's miscommunication, misunderstanding, misaligned expectations. But I don't feel like there's a lack of love. I don't. I do feel like the love is there. Because, you can't force anybody to change. But you can change you and how you're showing up and see if it makes a difference. And then maybe from there you make a choice. But I do feel like your partner is willing to put in the effort, is willing to do the work. I think you need to initiate that conversation, though. I do. Because I feel like you are the one who is having some unhappiness here. Some anxiety, some fear with that Nine of Swords. And your heart is getting broken by those misaligned expectations. And with the Influence card here, this is what can take it all down. This Influence card. Be very careful, be very mindful. Because think about it, if you're always complaining to your friends, venting to your friends, your family about your relationship and they only hear the negative, they're going to tell you, you need to leave them, you need to walk away, whatever. And then you can start to ruminate too. And then that can create some gossip as well around your relationship and your connection. And then that creates more of a strain. So I think if you're someone, who has a tendency to do that, and it's okay, it's a very natural thing. I think a lot of people do it. Just be mindful. Are you ever sharing anything positive, anything good about your relationship? And I think just be careful too about who you take advice from. I think ultimately in this, you know your relationship better than anyone. So just be careful and be mindful about listening to what someone else has to say about it and not critically assessing whether that advice resonates with you or not. And be careful about people who just tell you what you want to hear. Because there may be some ways in this relationship where you need to change too. You know, there's two sides to every story with the Hanged One. Maybe there's some ways in which you're not showing up as your best self either. Like I said, and I gave that personal example of like, I had to start questioning myself, because if you give a lot, you can tend to, and this is just generally speaking, and this was true for me when I was younger, and I'm talking about when I was like 18, 19, I realized I was victimizing myself. I was falling into the role of the martyr. I was becoming a little bit addicted, I think, to self-pity. And again, like, where did that need come from? Why did I need to feel needed? Why did I need to give so much? And I think it's important to recognize the ways in which sometimes we can be a jerk. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but I'm saying we all have aspects of ourselves where we need to grow. And for me, I was like, this is where I need to grow. I need to really look into this and fix this and resolve this, heal this, whatever term you want to use, but it's not serving me, and it's not serving the people that I have close connections with. You know, this is a way that I am, and it wasn't conscious. I wasn't intending to hurt anybody or manipulate anybody or control anybody, but that desperate need to have someone to stay because of that fear of abandonment was causing me to behave in those ways. And it was passive aggressive. And so I had to fix it. And I was better for it. And so whatever this is for you, I think you and your partner have areas for growth. And I think you guys can make it work. I don't think that this has to end in heartbreak. It can, but I don't think it has to. And I think it's a conversation between you and them. And I would just be very wary about bringing in the advice of other people into the mix. I mean, just be careful about making assumptions too. Have direct communication with them. Don't assume. And don't let other people, you know how sometimes, I think especially women do this, you call up your friend, you explain to them what happened, and you guys are like breaking it down scene by scene, play by play, like analyzing what they really meant when they said this, or what did this text mean. Women do that a lot. And you may end up making a lot of false assumptions. And you know, your friend may not even mean to, but maybe they're projecting their relationship problems onto yours. Sometimes that happens too. So just be careful about this influence card. Someone's, you know, in your ear about this. You gotta just set a boundary and say, listen, it's between me and my partner. We're gonna work it out. Or we're not gonna work it out, but it's between us. Okay? And I'm sorry, this wasn't like, you know, super rosy, super happy, very positive reading. And I think especially compared to the other two groups, y'all had the tougher one. But I feel like you're at a pivotal moment next year in your relationship, whether or not you're going to stick it out and change and grow and help each other, whether you want to work it out or whether you don't. Like I said, ultimately with the Star card and the Magician, you're going to be happy either way. You're going to get your wish come true in love either way. But it's just, which path do I want to take? Do I want to build that with my current partner, or do I want to find somebody else and start over? The outcome is going to be the same. The journey is going to be different. So which way do you want to go? The choice is yours. Now, to end on a positive note, we're going to get these cards here, which will represent what your partner will love about you and appreciate about you the most in 2024. And then we'll get some Spark Romance Matchsticks. Okay. We've got Wellness. We've got Dreams. And we've got Sanctuary here. I love that Sanctuary came out because it very much speaks to your most positive qualities with the lover. You are your partner's safe space. You feel like home to them. You bring them peace. And that speaks to how nurturing and how loving and how affectionate and how devoted you are. You have so many positive qualities, and I want to stress again, like, you are in many ways an ideal romantic partner. You are. And I think it's hard to match that energy, and that's why you end up disappointed a lot. And with the Wellness card here, throughout 2024, you are assessing what you deserve and how you feel like maybe sometimes your partner breadcrumbs you, even if they're not intentionally doing it. And so I feel like, especially if you have those hard conversations, your partner is really going to respect how you are being assertive, how you are showing how you respect yourself. And I think it's almost going to be a bit of a relief for them to see you start to take care of yourself, because I think sometimes it's overwhelming when you give and give and give, and the other person feels guilty and they feel indebted to you, and it's not like an enjoyable experience for them at a certain point. It's like a bit of a relief for them to see you taking care of yourself, to see you giving to yourself. They're like, whew, this takes some of the pressure off of me. And I think that they're happy to see you do it. If you think, okay, just to give context, because I think a lot of moms do this. If you know your mom, if you've seen a mom be kind of like overbearing sometimes, and it's like, okay, like, thank you, and everyone's like, Mom, you should do something for yourself. You should take some time for yourself. And some moms get in that martyr energy where they're like, no, I never have enough time for me. I have to do everything for everyone else. And it's like, well, stop saying yes to everybody. Make dad step up. But I think women are conditioned to be in that role of the giver, to be self-sacrificing, that it's hard to step out of that because we feel that that's what's expected. And so when mom finally does take a trip with her friends, has a self-care day, takes care of herself, she's less frazzled, she's not so moody, she's not so stressed, she's not so burnt out, she's not snappy. When she gives in the future, she's not depleting herself. It's like everyone else can breathe a sigh of relief because mom is not so sensitive. Mom is not so quick to get emotional because mom is not so frayed. Mom is not so burnt out. And we see mom happy. And that's nice to see mom happy and to see mom smiling. It's nice to see mom taking care of herself. It's nice to see that mom took the time today to, even as simple as shower, get ready, look nice just for herself. And that's a relief to everybody. And it's like, finally, mom, like, we wanted you to take some time for yourself. And part of that is that everybody depends so much on mom that they contribute to the problem. And so I think your partner is starting to recognize as you take more time for yourself, as you give more to yourself, I feel better, I feel more relieved. And they start to, I think, recognize too, you need time to give to yourself, and maybe they were taking too much. And maybe you're both happier when you give less and they stop taking so much from you. Maybe you're both happier. They don't feel that guilt and you don't feel used. And so you both start to find a different dynamic with each other that's a lot healthier and happier for you both. And so I think that that's part of what they start to love about you, and they're happy to see you prioritizing your own emotional, physical, mental well-being. And with the dreams here, I mean, they do love you. They really do. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, they see you as their dream partner. In a lot of ways, they romanticize you. In a lot of ways, they still see the best in you. And I think at times that's a heavy weight to carry. If someone puts you on a pedestal, that can be a heavy weight to carry. And maybe sometimes you don't feel like there's room for you to be human. And maybe you put a lot of pressure on yourself to be perfect or to live up to this expectation that they have of you. And again, that's a conversation. But there's so much love here, and I don't want to minimize the amount of love here. There's so much love. But I think y'all are going through a challenging time next year. You are. But I think if you decide to stick with it and work through it, you're going to have the relationship that you've been praying for and hoping for and wishing for, that you've been trying to manifest. You can be in a really good chapter. But it's like, we have to clean out the closet before we can organize and put everything back together again and make it pretty. You know, we have to get out the ugly first. Sometimes things get worse before they get better. Let's get your matchsticks. Group 3. I'm feeling called to take some at the very bottom. And I think there's a metaphor in that. Digging deep with each other. We have sign up for a class together. I mean, this could be you trying to bond together next year. And this could also be you trying to learn, you know, like how to be a better partner for each other. Because I think there's a lot about learning here. And I do think you guys need more quality time together. Oh my gosh, here, turn off your phones and the TV for an evening and talk instead. We've talked over and over again about you guys need to have some real conversations with each other. And it says, stay in bed all day together and binge watch your favorite show. Yeah, because I feel like a couple different things here. Like, to sum it all up, there needs to be time and space to learn more about each other, what the other person needs, quality time. There needs to be heart-to-heart conversations. But I think also there needs to be just time to cozy up together, to enjoy the simple pleasure of the other person's company. And it doesn't have to be some big romantic gesture or some elaborate date or anything like that. It just needs to be showing up for each other on a day-to-day basis in a way that the other person needs and wants to make this stronger. So I know that this was like a harder reading, but I really hope it gave you clarity. And I really hope that it gave you the guidance that you need to move forward in 2024 And again, just to re-emphasize to you, you are going to get the outcome that you want, whether you stay in this relationship or you don't. It's just a matter of your perspective and what you want to do, and whether you want to do that work or not with your current partner, or you want to do that work with someone else. You're going to do the work regardless, and you're going to get your desired outcome regardless. It's just, which journey do you want to take? Which path do you want to take? Do you want this person by your side, or do you want someone new? All right, that concludes your reading. I hope it resonated. I hope it brought you some comfort. Please consider liking, commenting, sharing, or subscribing. Hitting the notification bell lets you know whenever I upload. The easiest way to support the channel is to watch the ads. I know they can probably be a little bit annoying, but you can always mute them and just have them on in the background. So I really appreciate anyone who does that as well. I also want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has watched the ads already, been a regular viewer, donated on Venmo, tipped with Superthanks, or just commented or liked a video. It means the world to me and to Miss Gracie, of course. I'm wishing everyone the best as always. Please take care, and I hope to see you in my